If you own a BMW with the B58 engine and you're getting a low coolant warning, then it might not be as simple as just tightening or replacing your coolant cap. Check it out.
There are a lot of things here I don't want to break, so I'm going very slow.
Broke it. That is a full piece of wood, and there's the handle to a brush.
It's awful, and I hate it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the garage. Once again, we are working on the BMW. The coolant warning light has been coming on. It's been going on and off ever since I got the car about 3 years ago. Usually when it's cold out, don't really know if that has anything to do with it specifically. Happened the first winter of 2020, 21, last year, and then just this last year in 23. Started in like November, I think, got the coolant warning, went back in, filled up the coolant tank with the appropriate amount of coolant, whatever it may be. I think like a week later, I got the notice again on the dash, and then I filled it up again, ignoring it, thinking it was still just the cap. And then it came back again like 2 days later, and I thought, this doesn't quite seem right. And I was pulling out of my driveway, noticed there was an actual spot on the ground. I was at work, leaving, and noticed that there was a very obvious wet spot on the ground there also. So clearly, my car was leaking coolant. So you'll see here in this video, I started off with just the assumption that I was going to be able to replace the coolant cap. And we look at the old one, and it's a little dirty. No obvious signs of any real issue there or leaking. And then I found the leaks below the water pump. And so that is the bulk of the video. This is where we replace the water pump on the B58. The first half of this is a little exploratory with the coolant cap and taking apart the whole front of the engine to get the water pump off. The actual replacement and the more clear steps on how to reassemble this thing at the back end of the video. So go ahead and hop over there if you want to. And just for reference, this is the old pump, and just listen to this. It should never ever make that noise. It should be buttery smooth. So stick around, check it out. I hope this is very informative for everybody, because this is something I've been messing with for a while, and I thought it was just as simple as replacing that cap, but it in fact is not. So let's get into it.
Man, it's foggy out. There we go. Coolant level low. And we are going to open up the hood, and I want to see if there are any obvious sources of leaking. Some of the other people online that have this similar issue with coolant consumption have actually found that their water pump, I don't know if it's the seal or the bearing, whatever, actually does leak a little bit. So I'm gonna get my handy dandy little endoscope thing, and we're gonna get in there and see if we can find anything. All right, gonna pop the cap off. The engine's still kind of warm, so don't do this, but watch me do it. This guy. Get this little hose out of the way. And there we go. It's open. Oh yeah, and you can see there's definitely where liquid has been evaporating off. You can see a little bit of the same in the lid itself. The fluid level is pretty low. So we're gonna clean this thing up and fill that back up. All right, here we go. We're gonna start putting some fluid in, see what happens. So we just hit the minimum mark, and there we are at the maximum mark. And that was most of a full quart that just went in there. So here we have the original cap for the coolant reservoir coming off of the car. And here is the replacement. I believe it was an OEM part from FCP Euro. And you can see they are largely similar. Definitely a little bit different color paint on this one. The embossing of the 140 a little different. You can tell there the paint on the arrow is a little just off. Has the Vico part number there. Underneath here, so this insert, definitely different, but this, the inner part, spins, moves around freely. This one spins, but it is tight. This is interesting though. It's just very loose. I don't know that if there's a significance to that. You can tell that this one is just a little dirty. Plastic's a little worn out. There is most definitely some gunk in that breather hole there. All right, get some of this crap cleaned off of here. Wipe this down with vinegar. And then take our new cap. That's interesting. The level's actually gone down a little bit. All right, whatever. Screw this bad boy back on. There you go. The arrow's lined back up. I think it just spins pretty freely. Make sure that little hose is back in there. Dab up any residue here. That's it for at least putting the new cap on. When I was not under there, but took my little camera, went in around the engine, it did look like there's potential for some other leakage in there. So I'm gonna have to get under there and look at that. Not too excited about that. There's some wet stuff. Obviously there's just water that can get up there from the road, so I couldn't tell if it was actual dripped coolant or if there was something else that had just splashed up from beneath. So I'm gonna go look a little bit right now and hopefully figure that one out. So I just started the car and moved it over from down the driveway and instantly got the low coolant light again, unfortunately. So there is definite evidence of the water pump leaking here, and I'll show you guys that as we get into this a little more. So the first thing we gotta do is just start taking stuff off the top of the engine. Okay, so what we have to do here is get your air cleaner out of the way, just unscrew that, and then pop out the actual lower housing, which should just be in there with friction fit with some rubber grommets. Well, hope that didn't break anything. Oh my God. So, we can see here, when we're pulling this thing apart, there's, front of the car's that way, there's a rubber mount here, a big ball there, and this slides into the actual intake itself, so it should lift straight out. That took a lot more effort than I think it probably should, but it's out. What we're going to try to do is just get it off with a screw. Possibly 7mm. There are a lot of things here I don't want to break, so I'm going very slow. There we go. Okay. That is a 7mm. Oh, there's oil in there. That's nice. Oh. Comes right off. So I just got the connector off for the air intake, and the little plastic clip fell down into here, which is the bottom of the intake tube that comes off of the turbo. And so now I have a little plastic connector down in the turbo. Super. All right. heat shield off of the connectors down by the turbo here. These connectors are insanely difficult to get off. Alright, we're getting somewhere here. I just got clip off the turbo housing and into this return pipe here. I'm going to pull this back. It mounts to that pipe that goes down. This is off of the air intake. So next is getting this pipe off of here, which looks like it has a catch back there. So we'll work on getting that off now. And this, unfortunately, is what broke off very easily here. Very flimsy plastic pipe. Okay, so what we're doing is slowly removing hoses from the front of the engine. It's quite a pain in the ass. This is very annoying. Everything seems to be just stuck. So I got the clip pulled off the turbo. That was a huge pain in the ass. Holy crap. So everything broke basically. Everything is extremely brittle. And here's the clip that fell inside the turbo. For reference, for anybody that's trying to figure this out, this is where it should rest, but for mine, it just didn't. It just wouldn't let go, which is very frustrating. But now it's off. There's a similar type spring clamp on this lower pipe too. So we're gonna come back to the top, remove this pipe. Use our little T30 quarter-inch drive. These clips are extremely frustrating. There we go. So you might not be able to see this. We're trying to get right there. There's another one of those spring clamps like this that needs to come off to remove that lower turbo pipe. It's a super duper pain in the butt. So I'll try to keep you involved here, but I also need to get in there myself. Come on. Alright, we're just gonna keep moving. Let's see if we can do this without taking out that pipe. Fan shroud screw is a T25. Oh. Okay. That really sucked. Gotta release the plug here, which is actually pretty easy. There's a little bit of a latch here. Gotta pull up. You know that there's a slot on this side, or a piece on this side that goes into a slot. So you gotta remove screw here, start pulling up, and then on this side there's actually a clip. You gotta get down in there with a big screwdriver and kind of pop the clip off. And then wiggle, 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 use your muscle, and it comes out. We're back, just had dinner. We're still digging in down here. We gotta get off the intake pipe here before we can get back to the water pump. It's proving to be a big pain in the ass. It's got one of those spring clips on it, so we're gonna try again, see if we can get in there and get that thing off. Got it. Alright. Pick this up. Okay, to remove this pipe, got to get that spring clip off there, and it also clips to another hose here, and you can see this thing actually has a good amount of oil in it, so I don't want to just dump it. So our water pump is right here, and if we get in there, we'll see that there is definite evidence of that thing leaking. So there is the tensioner right here. Got to get a ratchet on that. And it's like a 16 millimeter or a 5/8. This tensioner is going to get turned that way, and I'm going to have to put a pin in that hole right there. So I got to grab something to put in that hole. And for that, we're going to use an Allen wrench. It looks okay, but we'll replace it anyway. Okay, next, we need to actually get in here at this water pump. You can't see it, but that coolant is about 1.5 inches below the minimum mark, which is not good. Alright, I was really hoping I wouldn't have to do this, but we gotta take off the under engine tray. A bunch of little bolts. What size are you? Not that size. Also not that size. You? Alright, come on. Not cool. We'll call it an 8mm. So, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, I think. There are a ton of rocks in this thing. Alright, I'll show you that in a moment. Here, you see, it's kind of damp, kind of just covered with stuff. There's a piece of wood. What the hell? That is a full piece of wood, and there's the handle to a brush that I'm going to assume that I lost, but I don't know when or how that happened. Right here is the lower hose connection point. That appears to be really the only place to release this, unfortunately. So I'm sure it has another stupid clip on it. But I'll try to catch everything I can coming out of it. You can see here, this is definitely wet. The bottom of the engine here also has coolant that's been running down from way up front. You can see the lines coming back. So this is clearly something that's been going on for a while now. Okay, we have a catch can. We are going to get down here, pop this little clip. Join me on the underside. That might have worked. We have a bucket that I had other plans for, but let's just do it. Great. Really glad that happened like that. Well, let's go back up top. This is what good planning does for you. Okay, this is we're going to use to take off the water pump, which is there. It's kind of in a precarious spot. This is a T30. I probably should have checked to see that my new part is actually the right size first. Oh, but that wouldn't be any fun. I have to live dangerously. So, here's our water pump. I believe all of our bolts are out. You know what? Let's look at the new one first. Here it is. Made in Italy. Okay. Here's our shiny new one. Has actually the BMW stamp on it. This is an OE part. That pulley is plastic. Is it not? Okay. Anyway, so it's oriented this way, which means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Should be fine. I just gotta pry that beast out of there. We don't want to hurt anything, so being very gentle. Maybe down here?
thought that might happen. Oh wow. Yeah, look, you can see at the bottom here, this thing's been seeping for a while. Wow. We actually found a problem. Man, everything is so wet and gross down here. Now we're gonna put the new one on. You can see here, this comes with the gasket. Looks and sounds great. Ooh, yeah, that is nice. I'm impressed. Be very careful tightening these because it's aluminum and you'll lose those threads real fast. All right, do a little snuggy snug here. Next we're going to put our new drive belt on. Super fancy Continental. All right, we got our drive belt back on. We need to take out the slack here. There we go. Around the pulleys. All right, just cleaned the intake throttle body gasket here. It's in very good condition still, so I'm not really concerned with replacing it. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's in. This was a real pain before. Oh, come on, you bitch. Now this is going to be a problem. This PCV hose broke. Alright, we're getting ready to button up the BMW's engine here. So there are two types of connectors on this engine that are a real pain in the ass. I broke one and have to buy a $50 PCV hose to replace it. So we're going to talk about both those right now. First one is these. Most of the clips for any kind of electrical connection on this engine are this little thing that has a little white clip attached to it. Now, how you release this is if you have strong enough fingers, you can pull it back and then it pops up. For the most part, my car at least, those are all so tight that it's really not possible without hurting yourself to pop those open. So what we're going to do here is just get a little flathead and maybe even a little pliers, whatever you can or need to do. You have to push back. That releases a little clip, then it pops up a little bit. Then you push this thing back as far as it can go, and it should release. So, to run through that again, you have to push the white clip back and then pop it up and then actually squeeze it towards the back of the connector while you remove it. It's a real pain. All of these connectors, at least the electrical connectors on this engine, most of them are like that. And mine are all full of dust, worn out, brittle. They really, really suck, especially if you don't know how to open them. The other one is this right here. This is part of the evap system. Most of these hoses have this odd connector that you can see it's kind of ribbed on one side. It's ribbed on the other side too. Definitely not for my pleasure. You have to squeeze both sides of that where it's ribbed, and that when you squeeze it, it'll expand the sides, which is where the clip actually is. And then that will allow you to wiggle that hose off. Most of these hoses that have that connection also have a little rubber gasket inside that is also full of dust kind of dried out. Very difficult to remove. And so that's actually what happened here. This is where the PCV connects. From here down to the turbo pipe. This one on the top, it was so stuck. I was jiggling it, moving it around, and the very fragile plastic hose just cracked. What I did to try to take care of that, at least for the time being, because it's a $52 hose that I bought a new one for, because I don't want this fix to be the permanent thing on there. I took some RTV and just kind of stuck the sides of it back together for now. It cracked right here, and it's just this flimsy plastic hose. But if we look at it from this point of view, you can see the sides here are where it connects or clips. So if you squeeze this, and it's very useful if you have some kind of pliers to do this. Squeeze it here, the sides expand. It's awful, and I hate it. And I hope this thing holds enough for me to at least start the car today. We're gonna piece the rest of this back together here quickly, and then see if we can run the coolant circulation test. So here are the steps that you need to go through to get your water pump out of the car. First off, remove your air box. The top piece comes off, and then the bottom section has 3 mounting points, rubber hole, and this ball type thing. If your car has like 80,000 or more miles on it like mine does, it's got a lot of dust in here, that rubber's really dry. It was difficult to get out. I thought I was going to break it. Just got to be aggressive but gentle is what I'd call it. Additionally, here is part of the intake that actually goes down to the bumper. You can see there are slots here where the piece actually slides down in there. It's back here in the car. We'll see it here in a little bit. Once you get that removed, you can reach down in here. This is where there's another piece of the intake. Comes up to the box. You got to undo the little hose clamp to lift that out. Then what you need to do for this lower intake piece, there's a spring clip way down here on the front of the turbo. Also be aggressive with that. It should lift out, so there's an inch and a half of clearance between the spring and the rubber boot. I messed with that for probably half an hour. Got it to a point where I thought it should come out. Wouldn't come out. So you're not really gonna break anything, I don't think. Just pulling that thing all the way off. Just try not to bend it out of its shape, but it's pretty resistant. Just be aggressive with it. Then, once this piece is out, this tube that runs up to the actual throttle body and down to the turbo, you have to remove that. So you got 3 Torx screws here, and there's a seal inside there. I did not replace my seal because it was actually in really good condition, just cleaned it off. So there's a seal inside there, and then that runs down to the bottom of the turbo where there is another spring clip, very similar to the other intake pipe. Got to get in there with like a screwdriver and kind of work it around, pop it out. It's a pain, took me a bit, but attack it from kind of the underside. If you can get your arm down there, that's very helpful. Then you have to release these hoses here, which are that weird oval spring plastic thing. Be gentle with them. I cracked the crap out of this one, but it still latches on there. So remove it from there and up here at the actual intake. That should allow you to remove the main piece. And you also have to remove from this connector here. So you have 3 pieces you'll actually, or 3 points you'll actually have to disconnect on that hose. Then there is also, this is the electrical connector that goes to the air intake. That's pretty simple. And here, where we have this open space, the PCV hose goes from down the lower intake pipe up to here. Disconnect it from the valve cover, and it will come out with the lower intake tube box thing. And then we have 2 more connectors here. One goes directly to the wastegate, and the other is another connector that goes onto the intake. So all in all, it's not that complicated to get that stuff out, but it's a real pain. Then once you have all that off, you come in here, there's this large connection for the fan. That's actually pretty easy to get out, just 2 ears on the side, squeeze, pull up. And then to remove the fan itself, you have to take out, there's a screw here at the top passenger side. That's the only actual screw holding this in. And then you have to pull up, just kind of wiggle it out. There are 2 actual clips down here on this side that you have to reach in with a pretty long screwdriver and just kind of pry them open a little bit. And then it really is just wiggling and muscling it out. It's in there very tight, but it wasn't too difficult to remove. So now we're going to put everything back together here, fill it up with coolant, and hope that it works. I did forget to mention that this is your heat shield that goes around the wastegate and the connector down here. It's worth noting that this little heat wrap goes inside the metal heat shield that's next to the turbo here. We're going to put our PCV back on. This is interesting. If you ever want to take this thing out without having to remove the whole assembly, there is a clip on the top and the bottom that you somehow need to get in and remove. And this annoyingly has a clamp at a stupid position, reorienting the big hose clamp so it's much easier to get to. Now our air box goes back in. There's a very large amount of stuff in here. Okay. Our air cleaner in here. For some reason, that screw is a different size than the other screw on the lower pipe. Now, we're going to put some coolant in the car. And it's, of course, completely empty right now. We have some pre-mixed here. 2.5, 2 3/4 quarts. Now that filled the reservoir, but there's no way that's actually full. I can hear it kind of glugging down through. And this one has 2 quarts. So I've been filling and filling this thing, reaching down in here to these hoses. You can see there's smaller and a larger hose. You can kind of grab right here and just squeeze and you'll hear. And as I've been doing that, you'll be able to see the levels going down, and we can actually see the the max fill line. So we have all of the coolant, at least the mixed coolant that I have on hand, in there now. Hopefully we don't need a ton more. That was 4.5 quarts, so a little over a gallon. We may have lost more than that, but I want to start this thing up and at least get the coolant circulating. But maybe I should wait a little bit until I get some more water. Probably should. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Then I'll come back out here and try it again. Now we're going to bleed our coolant system. We took off the pump and we drained the radiator. I only captured about 1/2 gallon, but I'm guessing at least as much went back on the ground. So I put in 4.5 quarts, so just a little over a gallon, in the expansion tank, squeezed my hoses, got some circulation going. Now we need to actually run the car's pumps to get the coolant bled more accurately. BMW does have a whole procedure for this, with attaching a vacuum to the tank, sucking out all the air. Probably works awesome. I definitely don't have that. So what we're going to do is just the old-fashioned way, and that includes setting up the car's system to start the electric pump, and then you literally just start the car, and it goes through a series of revving up and down and up and down and up and down over a little bit, and then that should be bled. We'll see how well that actually bleeds it. All right, this is frustrating. Doesn't seem to be working. All right, we're going to try this again. We have the headlights on low, seatbelt clipped in. Oh, shut up. And flashers on. Ignition 3 times. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now, 15 seconds. 2, 3, 14, 15. I actually hear it. It's working. So now, let's start the car. It should sit at 1200. Okay, that worked. So the mistake that I made there, when I was turning the fan speed down, I was turning it down and then accidentally turning it off also, because down is the off button. So go through some cycles here of 2000 RPM for 10 seconds or so. We'll go back down to 1200. Do a little more revy rev under here. Alright, we're gonna kill it and see what our level is. Yeah, that definitely went down. Looks like we are probably an inch or 2 low in there. So hopefully Mrs. Yoder got my text to please pick up some distilled water from the store so that I can finish this off. But in the meantime, I'm gonna get back under there and put the cover back on. I think we did it. One last piece. Put the sound cover on, which surprisingly does a very significant amount. Didn't really ever realize that. Okay. And that is that. We're gonna close it all up. It is the next day after the replacement of the water pump, and so far I've put about 90, 80, I don't know, some amount of miles on the car. Decent drive. Gotten up to temperature, gotten up to speed, going like, well, I won't say the exact speed, but the speed limit in California for extended periods of time. No signs of any kind of leaks or anything. Sat in a few slowdowns so the car can actually get a little hot. No lights of any kind yet, which is great and exciting. No reason to think anything was done wrong, as you saw in, or will see in, that the video here. The old pump was very obviously failing. The new pump is smooth as silk, and that actually was the issue. So keep on driving here, and we'll call that the update for now. Project success.
All right, that is it. Thanks for watching. I hope that's helpful. Like always, if you have any comments or questions, let me know. That was really not that difficult of a job to do. Really just getting all those connectors and hoses off was a pain in the ass. So hope it was helpful, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks.